Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my weekly cult situation report. I'm Danielle, a scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership, former Captain Mestinek in the United States Army. I have a master's degree from Harvard in organizational psychology, and now I am working on, almost done with, a book called The Culting of America. Every week, just like in the military, when we give our roll up of everything to the commanders, I give you a roll up of things that have happened in the week of cults and in my week of cults. So let's get started. Of course, please like and subscribe. All right, so this week, talk a bit about why college students are so vulnerable to cults and recent graduates. And there's a lot of talking about the military and all of this, and I just remind you like, cults want you when you're young so that they can build you in their image. The military wants you while you're young so they can build you in their image. Companies want you while you're young so that they can build you in your image, right? You're in times of transition. And anywhere in the space of personal transformation, I find, do we see predators showing up and coming to take advantage of people, right? So it's a really like independent time, but it's a time of self-discovery. It's very intense. Some of these students are really lonely for the first time in their lives and away from everyone they know. One of the things we know that makes you more susceptible to joining a cult is having a lack of social connections, even if it's just temporarily. So if you have moved away from home, this can be a really difficult time. There's also this search for community, right? Like you're a student, you're new, but also you're young. This is exciting. You're in walkable communities, which for some people in the US, this is the first time. And cult like organizations will take advantage of this, right? Cults also pop up in times of social turmoil. So there's just a lot of this stuff going on right now. And then I want one more thing is they're young and eager to please, right? So it is just easy to take advantage of them. This is one of the things I keep saying to people when they're all scared of martial law. Like, do you not know how to manipulate 19-year-olds? 'Cause that's going to be the people with the guns. Because I think we, the adults, can take them. Okay. Also want to point out that one-on-one cults are a thing, right? These are abusive relationships. This is personalized manipulation. And many people fall prey to this in college, much like I did and wrote about in my book Uncultured, which I mean still I think the coolest thing ever was selling Jeff Bezos out of books. I'm sorry if you all have bought books and are waiting for them. I had a completely unexpected about 3 week delay in books from the printer because, you know, logistics right now. So getting out about 300 today. We're going to clear the rest of that cash by next week and then be back to selling them at a normal time level. Just to point out that in some of these one abusive relationships, right, tactics that you're going to see look like high control dynamics, right? Gaslighting, love bombing, and then switching back and forth between personalities. What's called come here, go away behavior in cult leaders, and information control. Information control is very important. I always like to say information is never bad. Okay, this week we also saw, first of all, happy Black History Month. Really amazing Super Bowl halftime show with some amazing messages about America. Really loved Kendrick Lamar's everything, the messaging, using Samuel L. Jackson, putting the critiques that racist white people are going to have of the halftime show in the show was absolutely perfect. Having Serena Williams come out and do her thing. Very significant. I think for those who don't know, Serena Williams did what's called the Crip Walk when she beat Maria Sharapova in 2012, and she was given a lot of grief for it by the country. Kendrick Lamar knew what he was doing. Um, Serena Williams is, of course, a Jehovah's Witness, so that makes me a little bit sad. Um, I have been studying the Kendrick Lamar beef, right? So obviously, like the Super Bowl, I think was this really important message about the black man's experience in America and how the game is rigged and how, you know what? He's winning anyway. I love that part. But I decided I wanted to learn more about the feud and the cultural impact. And so I've had a fun week doing that. I also had realized that like deconstructing music trauma was going to be important to me just a few months ago. You know, the Children of God, the cult I grew up in, is one of these completely separatist cults where we didn't listen to any outside media. And we had our giant own music and media program. That was what we were. We were the entertainment cult, and we were only allowed to listen to our music. So when I was kicked out at 15, I just had such a hard time fitting in high school. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to be a human, it felt like. And it was really traumatic for me when people would ask me what music you listen to. I ended up in Texas. I fell easily into country, right? Because it's simple to listen to and it's comforting, I think. And it's the most similar to some of that praise and Jesus music. It's also super, super white. And that's one of the reasons why some of these controlling religious cults are okay with like country music, but heaven forbid not rap, right? And so I never realized all of the reasons that I probably stayed away from rap and R&B music, but recently, of course, as I have been on a journey to deconstruct my own internalized white supremacy, I have been looking at some of that. Also, since I've, written the musical Uncultured, and part of that was to take back this end time rap video that I had done in the cult and made me realize like, oh, the musical music needs to be rap meets Christian rock music. And I think we're gonna be able to say some really, really interesting stuff. Anyway, I've been learning about the Kendrick Drake beef and like, started sort of as this interesting thing. I love the concept of rap as a competitive sport. And also, one of you sent me the Hamilton book. Thank you so much. And as I've been reading that, and there was this great phrase where he says, you know, Lin Manuel Miranda does the same thing Shakespeare did with rap and what Shakespeare did with sonnets is he takes the English language and elevates it by setting it to verse. And I have been like, wow, that's what Kendrick Lamar is so good at as I have been like listening to this stuff. I so what I did was I read about the whole thing and then I went and so first I listened to all the songs. Then I went and read about it and watched some documentaries and watched Josh Johnson explain it. And then I went and listened to it again. And like, I was shook when I got to meet the Grabs the second time around. Um, I haven't, I'm still working on it and digesting all this stuff. But one thing that's interesting, I'm totally on Kendrick's like side of this beef, which is also easy to say because he's clearly so far won. But it doesn't escape me that Drake, Audrey Graham, is a cult baby, and he grew up in the cult of Hollywood. And actually, watching Josh Johnson explain some stuff gave me a piece that I was missing in trying to explain the cult of Hollywood. And I think Hollywood is this cult, and a cult can be led by a person or an idea. And I think the idea that leads the cult of Hollywood is fame, and that fame is awesome, and that fame is worth sacrificing everything for, as goes with transcendent missions in cults. And, Josh Johnson was saying something very interesting. He was talking about P. Diddy at this point, and he was saying, people can give you power and people can give you money, but people can't give you fame. But they will promise that they can to try to manipulate you, right? If they are these manipulative people. And I had never related to anything so hard because, of course, I went through this whole big publishing process and I really believed that like when a major publisher wants to make your book successful, they know how to do it. And what I found out is they know how to make a good book, but nobody knows how to make something go viral, right? Which isn't this is what Kendrick says? You can't buy influence. Um, Here's knitting cult puppy. He just wants to be grumpy on my lap. He doesn't actually want to say hi to you because he's not cool like that. Um, so I realized I went through this whole process, got a book Uncultured out, right, that I'm very proud of, but like then my book, which the days are planned way, way, way in advance, came out 2 weeks after Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, which was then going viral. And it was like, just timing, not much anybody can do. Speaking of Jeanette McCurdy's I'm Glad My Mom Died, we just read that in Cult Book Club and discussed it this week. Next week, we do Cult Theory Book Club, and we'll be discussing Yanya Lalich's Take Back Your Life. Both of those can be assessed through our Patreon at the $10 level. We're also adding a cool thing to the podcasts, which is that we are going to start doing Ask Me Anything questions from our Patreon paid subscribers and onto the podcasts. And I will get back to those, of course. Okay, so going back to cult of celebrity, this is what Drake was brought up in, and Drake was playing his game and doing his thing. And then he picked a fight with the wrong person. And I'm not going to get all into it because it's a lot. But check out my TikToks on it. We've been having a good, interesting, fun conversation, that's for sure. Then we have Kanye and Bianca Censori. And, Kanye's still around doing Nazi stuff, very much embedded in this cult of patriarchy. And, anyways, he is in the news this week because he's doing Nazi stuff and because he had Bianca Censori walk essentially naked down the red carpet. And it was just so, I can't remember if we talked about this on another cult situation report, but they're back because now they're broken up, which I'm glad for her. I hope it sticks. But it was such an abusive thing to do, right? Have her walking unclothed, him clothed. It is such a, again, abusive thing to do. Again, reminding about 1-1 cults, right? We see this being played out. I think this really, really ties into what the cult of MAGA wants from women right now. And Tia Levings, whom we love, author of Well Trained Wife, as ever, makes tons and tons of good content on this. Oh, yeah, there it is right there. So definitely go check out Tia Levings. And, just a friendly reminder that Pete Hogsbreath, the Secretary of Defense, goes to Doug Wilson's church, the one that Tia Levings had to run for her life from. Like real cults, these people. We'll get to more of that. And then we have, we'll just do it right now. So in Trump's world, we have Amy Coney Barrett, who is in a cult called People of Praise. We have Tulsi Gabbard, who was born and raised on a cult commune, just like I was, in the Science of Identity Foundation, and only ran for president because her guru, Chris Butler, told her to do so. Also, she is a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard. She is suspected of being a Russian intelligence asset, very extremely, and she is now in charge of all of our intelligence. So that's wonderful, isn't it? Everybody who he has put up has gotten approved. The last one being RFK. All of the, news outlets that still can are talking about how we only, all these news sources are talking about how we only have two branches of government, right? Like the Democrats cannot push back in Congress because they do not have the majority, and the Republicans have just abdicated any checks and balances. So now we've got the courts, and obviously the presidency is the other branch of government and seems to just be going wild. But I have my eye on Elon and Trump because, first of all, right, I do not think that Felon 47 will ever forgive that on the day of his empire, the number one thing being talked about was Elon's salute. I don't think he'll forgive cover of Time magazine with Elon at the Resolute desk. And I don't think he will forgive Elon's son, whom he now carries around everywhere as a human shield, for telling him to shut his mouth and that he wasn't the president. These are all these little things, right? And a cult leader is going to use somebody, but eventually be lying in wait. Henry VIII took the head off of most of his counselors. So, of course, there's also the possibility that Trump is just completely either out of it from age and dementia or being kept on something, because he does seem very, very strange it is not uncommon for cult leaders to just be kept hopped up on drugs or alcohol or whatever at the end by the people around them who want to access the power of the cult that they have built. Um, More to be seen. We are seeing the courts push back, right? Which is very significant, right? Doesn't mean it's all going to work, but we are seeing pushback. We're still waiting, I think, for like what is the tipping point for the American people. I just wrote like some paragraphs in Culting of America all about the psychology of mass movements, but like doesn't mean I can create the tipping point. Um, Trump, of course, did this whole takeover at the Kennedy Center, and this is like hugely just fascism, right? Controlling art equals controlling resistance. This is why artists are so important right now. And fascist regimes throughout history have sought to control artistic expression. So now he's going to go take over the Kennedy Center. People have quit in protest. I want to say Shonda Rhimes quit the board in protest. So proud of her. And he's just following the authoritarian playbook. We know what he wants to do. But please don't remember that art and aesthetics have historically always been tools of political resistance. Right now, looking and educating yourself on like color theory and how propaganda and fashion can be used both for control and for subversion is very important right now. I do not think it is a coincidence that AOC is suddenly knitting publicly. I am sad that she's going to get more famous for knitting faster than me, and I was doing it first. Hey, what is going on, knitting cult puppy? And of course, as ever, I'm going to remind you that clothing is such an important part of deconstruction because in cults and high control groups, appearance control, which is always about behavior control, is usually very important part of them. So have fun with clothing as a part of your personal deconstruction. I like to tell people to wear wacky outfits, whatever that means to you, but that can be part of your resistance. Sometimes for me, it was just wearing really bright colored underwear under my army uniform while I was deployed. But like, I knew, and it made me stronger. Um, let's talk about Elon Musk and the cult of entrepreneurship, right? I mean, so he's facing legal challenges from 14 state attorney generals right now for alleged overreach in government operations. His Doge, right, Department of Government Efficiency, which came from a meme and then they made it real life, supposedly aims to cut the defense budget by 8%. There's all seems to be all kinds of tension around the White House, around the government by this restructuring approach. Of course, $390 million for Cybertrucks, though. That's not fraud, waste, and abuse. Like, that one can stay. Okay, we're clearly just in full on sort of craziness right now. Now I gotta play fetch with a puppy. And there's so much here out of like the cult of entrepreneurship, whose motto is move fast and break things. And we have been glorifying entrepreneurs as these disruptors who are risk taking over stability. But move fast and break things often leads to ethical and security risks. And there are reasons that government and the things that government regulates is so regulated, right? Because it is important. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we have the same air quality as China here in a decade because of all the regulations we know that they want to take away. Um Hopefully some of the fighting back is going to work. I have finished pretty much editing chapter 7 of Culting of America, which is us versus them mentality. Um, my talent manager, Lizzie, who has a degree in American civilizations, also helped me write like an insert essay for this. But I start off talking about Greek life, nationalism, and then radicalization and how all of this comes together in us versus them mentality in cults and in America. So, we open every chapter with something that is not a cult that we're talking about as though it were a cult, or maybe it is a cult all along, talking about Greek life and how they enforce loyalty through hazing, social hierarchy, and financial commitments, and can create super toxic cultures where members feel intense pressure to conform. Again, they're young, they're college kids, right? Um, There's also all of this hypermasculinity, all of this sexual violence that we see. And we also see quite a lot of, can see quite a lot of like psychological control and identity loss. And these are sort of important things that cults want you to have. From here, we go into us versus them mindset in our society and like, why is America so culty? And this is where Lizzie gives us sort of an essay on American history and American exceptionalism as this cult like narrative we have, right? The Pilgrims and the Puritans, first of all, are not interchangeable. And the Puritans were extremists who wanted to burn women and invented universal education so that they could better indoctrinate the children. Puppy had to go have a timeout. Okay, so we talk about American exceptionalism and this cult like narrative. I give you a little background on the history of cults in America, and we see cults popping up in times of social turmoil, and then these modern manifestations that we are seeing of cults like QAnon, MLMs, social media, and of course, MAGA. We talk about the psychology of groupthink and radicalization and mass movements and the danger of absolute loyalty. And of course, what do cults want? They want your work and your labor. And that is what the next chapter is going to be about. Which brings me to preppers and all of the freaking out that is going on right now. And there's so much in the prepper mindset, and there's also so much of people being like, it's really scary right now. But here's this thing about prepper mentality, right? As someone who's worked in the security industry, this is what we do in the military. We look at what we think is most likely to happen and what we think is most dangerous to happen, but you don't prepare for the most dangerous. Because when the most dangerous happens, all bets are off, and you are just fighting with your backs to each other, trying to get out of there in one piece. You're preparing for the most likely. Now, when we get to this prepper mentality, right? Like, a smart thing to do right now is to be prepared for personal emergencies, to have some sorts of, a week or two worth of food and cash and stuff like this. But if we have large apocalypse level events like the internet going down in the whole world, which I've been talking about, trying to like educate people on my TikTok, like you're going to have to survive in community. People like having 3 months of food stored away is not going to help you unless you also have tons of weapons and ammunition to protect that food and are ready to use that against your neighbors. And I think this really kind of highlights the problem with individuality in America. Like, we are not going to survive these huge level events or things like our government crumbling around us without community. We can't do it in isolation. And I think a really good piece of advice right now is to ask yourself, like, what special skills do you have? And then start learning those things about your neighbors, right? Who knows how to grow food and vegetables and things? Who knows how to, one, we were talking on the live and one was like, I'm a firefighter. I'm like, that's a great skill to have, right? Like, there's a lot of different things that I know how to do with military background, with a cult kid background. I keep saying this too. Find your cult kids and find your veterans in your neighborhoods because we know how to do a lot of things. An idea that I've had that I'm trying to get started in my community is instead of just having a happy hour and like listen to neurotypicals talk because they're boring, like you have a monthly happy hour where one person is on tap or one or two people and they get up and give you a 30-minute talk about something that they're good at, and you might learn something new and interesting and have some ideas, or maybe you just know like who has the generator in the neighborhood and knows how to use it, right? So who knows how to make food out of different things, who knows how to forage, who can do all of these different things. Okay, so I think there can be like self-reliance and community reliance, and then there is paranoia level. Like somebody was today, was like, are we going to go to war with Mexico in 2 years? Like, we don't even know what he's going to do in the next 2 weeks. Like, stay here with us. And I remind you to ask yourself, like, who benefits from the panic, right? That woman on social media who did all the Canada, we're going to war with Canada videos, like, she made a bunch of money from that. That's why she did it, to go viral, to make money. Speaking of war with Canada, I think people have forgotten that soldiers are human beings who have to be heavily, heavily motivated to get them to go out and do war against other human beings. So, to everyone talking about war with Canada, like, how? He is an angry little Henry VIII stomping around going, I want a war. But, like, how? I was the intelligence officer for a battalion, right? A battalion of helicopters. And if you had told me to collect intelligence and make a threat scenario for Canada, I would have said no. And I would not have just said, no, I'm not going to do it. I would have said, sir, I'm also not letting you into your secret vault to access any of the stuff that you need to do this. And maybe they would drag me away, but I was one of the only people that knew how to do aviation intelligence at that point. And like there's only so many times that can happen before your unit is not effective anymore. So I really think we need to let things develop before the all out panic just sorts of starts. This is part of the plan to keep you incredibly, incredibly exhausted and also to keep you complying in advance. I'm starting to just get really upset about hearing people say things like, we can't protest. They just want an excuse for martial law. Martial law is not feasible in America. Stop it. Go protest. Mr. Knitting Cult Lady went to a protest yesterday, met tons of important people. This is something else that we're doing. We're interfacing with our government representatives at the level that we can. We live near DC, so it's a pretty high level, but you can do this at your level and just tell them you're available. Give them your money when you can, tell them they're available, and ask them what they need help with. Because there are people fighting this. There was a big protest out in front of VA headquarters yesterday to preemptively try to warn them and scare them that we are not going to take you coming for veterans laying down. So figure out the part that you care about. I've been reading aloud on my TikTok video Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. And one of his, let me see if I can remember the four. Number one was do not comply in advance. Number two was protect institutions. He's like, pick an institution that you care about. For me, it's the post office. And like, get involved and protect it. They recently told me at my post office that they're justifying having more people on staff because of all the books I send to you all. Yay! I'm not going to remember the other two, even the one I just read this morning. But there you go. Those two were important. And really, really, like, the lone wolf mentality is not going to help us anymore. But if we understand that there are 340 million Americans, they can't make us do anything we don't want to do. Oh, by the way, y'all, with my book delay, I finally found a really good answer for the both siderisms of people being like, because obviously I critique the cult of MAGA a lot, and people are like, well, both sides are culty. And I'm like, okay. I understand that any political system where you only have two parties, it is black and white, and one side defines themselves as being not the other side, that is culty. But I can tell you what, I wasn't selling 50 to 200 signed cult books a day when the Democrats were in office. So, as my agent likes to say, money talks. And now, oh wait, not nitpicking yet. I'm going to tell you all about this book that is written by another author at my publisher. My publisher is called Otter Pine. It is a indie author publisher. They are super, super amazing. Check out Otter Pine. This book, oh, I love the cover so much. It's called White Women Get Ready: How Healing Post-Traumatic Mistress Syndrome Leads to Anti-Racist Change by Amanda K. Gross. We interviewed her on Cults and the Culting of America podcast, so you can go listen to that, or you can watch it on here wherever you're watching this. Oh, look at these stickers I got. White women, get ready. And I'm going to be doing a thing on my social media where I have some of the books to sell also, because I'm going to be reading this and sharing parts of it with you. So check it out if you want, wherever you buy your independent books, or just wait till you can buy them here on social media. The proceeds are all going to the author. I'm just helping. And uh, most of her proceeds are going to a movement, I think. We will find out about that as we get into the book. But I'm very excited to read this for me, and I think I'm also going to find some very good quotes for it to put into my book. And so this will be one of my new projects. And now for some nitpicking. All right, so I did finish that one cable sweater that I showed you all last time, but it is now gone because it had to get to its person. This that I love so much. So I got this vest for Christmas, and then I added fuzzy sleeves. One side is lighter than the other, but what you gonna do? Didn't notice. And I made these earrings to match, so they're super cute. And then sometimes I put my book in it. Little frames. Whoops. I don't know if you can hear me. Here's another pair of circular logic earrings that I make, right? And I make these from bangles. These ones are very lover coated if you are a Swiftie. And then sometimes I get matching bangles that are so cute that I didn't even wrap these ones in yarn. I just made them earrings. And I made these to go with this collar. Okay, these are my Love Bomb collars. And so I got this necklace in a jewelry haul, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to make it even more va-va-voom. And so I did. And now I think I'm going to do a lot of fun things with statement necklaces. This one, oh yeah, I got a virtual assistant. Her name is Megan. She's a police officer wife, and I went through a company that hires spouses of mostly military spouses, also apparently law enforcement, to match them up with people who need virtual assistants. So, anyways, but like you can see this, I took this like cheap plastic necklace, and now I'm making it a collar. And so this is going to be Megan's welcome to working for Knitting Cult Lady collar. She's a little overwhelmed, I think, but it's going to be cool. One of the things Megan is going to do is help me build out Knitting Cult Lady's closet, probably on Etsy. We'll see, but I'm going to have just all of these things listed so that people can buy them as they like them. And I get to trade out a bunch of things because, you know, when you craft for 4 to 12 hours a day, you have a lot of things. I made this gold one on this necklace. I just made it on the lower part. Really, really like it. Super. I had to make, oh yeah, I made someone some big Love Bomb earrings that are heart crocheted. I had to send those off. But because I hate, as soon as I have to make something for someone who's ordered it, my brain like doesn't want to do it. So I was tricking myself into wanting to do it by making this collar. And I made this one too that I really love. This is on this little blue necklace that you can barely see. And that's been me for this week. Thank you so much for hanging out. Catch you next week. Don't panic, but don't be unprepared. We are living through crazy times. And please, whatever you do, don't join a cult. They're never as fun as you think. Captain Mestinek out. Have a day, y'all.